So, welcome to the world of awesomeness. So, before we jump into, speak about like what is there in HTML, what is there in CSS and JavaScript, I wanted to like show you guys a little bit of like what are the different sort of websites that are, that what are the different things that you can do, in working with front end development. So, if you go to the first slide, right? So, it's like a screen of like it's like a snapshot of Wikipedia. So you can build that when it comes to front end development. Like it's a static HTML JavaScript page. Yeah, perfect. So this is like a visual of the Material UI's page. So Material UI is a UI library that is used for React. So yeah, okay. Yep. So when you see right the difference, so the first one is also something that you could do with front end development. The second one is also something that you can do. And if you go, there are like a lot of advanced things that you can do. So this is like pathfinding algorithm visualizer. So if we just have a look at it, right? So I can click on this and I'll open this application. So we see here we have an application that's built by another front-end developer. So this is built on using JavaScript and React. So over here, what happens is we have a start node and we have an end node, and say we select an algorithm. Say we select A star, Dijkstra's A star algorithm, and we click on visualize. So this sort of tracks a path between uh, the start node and the end node. So this is also something that you can build using HTML, React, and JavaScript. So going back to the slides. Move this away. Yeah. And this is a much more advanced application where we have a lot of visualization libraries. So like say D3, and there's even a 3D component to this. Like this is a pair trading application, and so here we have much more advanced features that are required in applications where you want to visualize data. So this is also something that you can build using front end development. And if you go one step further, we go into the world of 3D. So this is a website called 3JS. So if you click on this, right, it's a link that is available. So here, these are all websites that are built using this library called 3JS that runs on the browser. So say if I click on any one, say I click on this Medal of Honor website. So this runs on your browser. It again runs using JavaScript, HTML, and basically it's basically a library called 3JS that uses 3D graphics to render components. So here we use JavaScript sort of to like I'll show you how this website works, that it loads. So since it has a lot of rendering and graphics involved, it even takes some time to load this website. So front-end development is not just placing HTML elements on the DOM, or giving it style using CSS. There are a lot of challenges that come when you talk about front-end development. So especially when it comes to website like these, right, you go into the realm of engineering. So you're not just developing something. You need to think of like how do I render so many elements on the browser, or how do I ensure that the website does not crash when this is happening. So this looks like a game, or it looks like a video, but actually I can control it using my mouse. So here it says scroll to navigate, right? So as I scroll down, this moves back and forth. So I can move front and I can move back. So this is basically JavaScript doing its work. So it's capturing my mouse event and it's giving it to the library saying, hey, there's an action happening on the browser. And run the code that is supposed to run when you scroll up or scroll down. So the library handles the rendering. So this is something you guys can explore. So now coming back to the workshop. So I'll start off by walking you through simple building blocks of what it takes to, uh, start off with developing a front-end application. So as we all know, we have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So what is HTML? So for those of you who are new to this, HTML plays the role of, like a template. Say, for example, you have a website where you have, say, a panel on the left, a panel on the right, and some text. So HTML only controls the part where you say, okay, this is the content that you have to show on the website, but HTML does not know how to make it look or how to, add any interaction to those elements that you're showing on the website. So that is HTML, and HTML has a lot of, different types of elements. Say if you want to add an image tag, you have an image element. If you want to add a video, you have a video element. If you want to add text, you have different sorts of text. Like, say, for example, even in this presentation, you're seeing that the top title is bold, so that's a different tag. So every tag in HTML has a meaning. So as we go through the slides, we'll sort of look at examples of what a HTML document looks like. And also, given that we are doing like an introduction workshop over here, I would like to take this opportunity to uh, give you all a sort of an, entry point into different types or different technologies that exist in front end. We might not be able to go in depth, but I would like you all to, by the end of this workshop, I want you all, I guess you all will be able to understand what HTML means, or what JavaScript means, what CSS means, and what React means. And further, you can explore by yourself. And we also have an application that we'll, start building along with this workshop. Yeah, cool. Uh, so you're sharing it? Okay. Thank you. You can. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So, yeah. Uh, Yeah. So after the building blocks, let's go to the next slide. So here we see that, like I told you, right? HTML is basically, it is like a building block of your web page. It is like a template, and it has a lot of tags. There isn't much to like worry when it comes to web development. There isn't much to worry when you look at HTML. So it's just like a text document. So this is an example of how an HTML document looks like. We have the h1 tag, the p tag. So p is basically the paragraph tag, and the br is like a break tag, and span. So a span is an inline element. So there are two types of element in HTML that we see in the picture on the right: an inline and a span element. So sorry, inline and a block element. So block elements are elements that are used to organize the template into groups. They are used for grouping purposes. And inline elements are used within the content. So for example, you want to add a paragraph. Within a paragraph, you want to say bold a particular sentence, or you want to give it some style. So there you use inline elements. So here we see how the HTML transforms when you actually look it on the browser. So we have the h1 tag that gives it a heading, the style of a heading, so it looks bigger and bolder. And then you have a p tag, that's a paragraph tag, that looks like a normal text. And the br tags are called the break tags. They are used to insert spaces in between different paragraphs. So basically every tag has its own meaning. And if you go to say, if you want to know about, like, say, what are all the different tags, you can just go to MDN. That's basically Mozilla, let's say, MDN documentation docs. So MDN docs is a documentation that's managed by Mozilla. So they have explanation to everything that you might want to know when it comes to front-end development. So say if I go here and type in the search bar, say HTML over here. So say HTML elements, or maybe elements. So you see here, these are all the different types of HTML elements that you can use. So against each element, we get a description of why this should be used. So this is something that you might want to save for yourself, and I'll just paste this link in the chat. Right. So moving forward, we go to block, and so we come to styling. So as I said, like HTML is used for just giving information to the browser as to what content to show. But how do I show the content? That is something that is controlled by CSS. CSS is called cascading style sheets, and to my understanding, I think it's by the word cascading. It relates to like appearing one after the other. So in CSS, if you define any style that is say there is this element called button, and we are giving it a color white, border radius, some font size, etc. It follows some order. Say if I have a same rule above it with a different color, the one that is processed the last will be applied. So for example, I have button style that says black, and then I have button style that says white. When the browser reads the cascading style sheet, it will read it in order, and the whichever one is read last is applied. So I think that could be the reason why it's called cascading style sheets. I just wanted to make a note of it here. So over here we see, right, there are two ways to add let's go back. Yeah, there are two ways to add style to a document. One is inline styling, and the other one is by defining a separate class or an ID. So um, over here we see, right, in the paragraph tag we are assigning it a style and saying that the width of that paragraph tag should be 80%. So in whichever say in HTML we have a tree structure that we saw in the previous slide. So over here we can also place elements inside another element. Like say suppose you have a section, and within the section you want to place a text. So the section's width becomes the 100% width, and if you say okay 80% of like the width 80%, it would take the 80% of that section. So that is a way you can define his CSS styles. And also another way you can define it is by giving a separate file, and we have all the different file extensions, right? .js, .exe, .zip. So like that, .css is a file extension that you should use if you are defining a style sheet. So we look at an example of how to use CSS within HTML. So if you can all open your browser and use code share, I think codeshare.io. Oh wait. No, you do not need to remember all the elements. So MDN has a really beautiful way of, grouping them, based on use. So say I want to develop a website and I have a design that a designer sends me, and I see that at the top I have a heading. So, and it is supposed to be a text element, and in between I have a video element, and later I have an image element. So if I go to MDN's website, it tells me which element to use based on the use case. So for example, see here, it says sectioning, the root. So like say you want to first give the first level of sectioning within the entire document, you use the body tag. And say I'm creating an address book. Over there I want to give the address of a person, so I use the address tag. And say you have a footer element at the bottom of the page, you use the footer tag. So this website documents this in a really good way. And question may arise, why do we have different tags? Like, is it just the name, or does it even mean something? Or does the browser get any information from this? So this comes to use when we have people using screen readers, right? When they use screen readers, say people who cannot see the website, so they actually touch and navigate through the website. So when the screen reader encounters an element and it says it is of type footer, it will actually spell it out loud saying this is there's a footer and these are the contents in the footer. So if you say there is a generic tag that you can use that is just for, you can uh, group a lot of elements using the div tag, and a div tag is a generic tag that you can use for any purpose. You can add a span within it, you can add text, you can add images, you can add anything within it. So if you use div tag for all the content, when people use screen readers they wouldn't know what it means. So HTML tags do have semantic information attached along with it. So uh, as you keep building a website, right, you'll get to know, okay, for a text, I need to use H tags or P tags or span tags. For image, so if I do image over here, right, there is an img tag. So if you click on this, you can also see, examples of how to try it out. So we see here, right, it's an image, it has the source of the image, and it has an alt text. So alt text is basically what appears, say the image does not load on the browser. So the alt text will be put over there so that people know that, okay, there was image of grapefruit that was supposed to appear here. Or say people who are reading with screen readers, when they touch on the image, the alt text should be read out loud. So they know that, okay, they are seeing, there is an image of a grapefruit over there. And the more you describe about the image in the alt text, the better they understand about the image. So I hope I answered the question. Let me know if you have any more questions. Yeah, so coming back, uh, give me a second. I had it open. It's codesandbox.io. So it's not code share. So let's open codesandbox.io. So codesandbox.io is a website where you don't need to, have all the HTML, all the libraries downloaded on your laptop. You can just go to Code Sandbox and click on try for free. It would help you spin up an environment right there and then, where you can, try out different things. So right now, let's just try a simple HTML CSS document. So let me see. So which one? Let's go with React. So because we're going to eventually look at React in a bit. So I'm just opening a React code sandbox. So you guys can do it as well. And I will not do a lot. Maybe I don't think React is a good thing. Okay, actually we can, right? That's not a problem. So over here we see, right? I'll be doing a very simple demonstration so that you guys can follow along as well. So like I mentioned, CSS style sheets are defined separately and the HTML content is defined separately. So this is a good practice to use when building large applications. You can also write inline styles, but it is always a good way to separate out the styles so that when you're doing modifications, it's easier to maintain. So let me show you the three ways of defining styles for the HTML element. So right now we have a h1 tag and we have a h2 tag. Let me give a p tag. So this is how you define a tag. So you start with the tag's name with a lesser than and greater than symbol before it, and then you end it at end. The end tag should have a forward slash. So this is a syntax that we use in HTML. So now I need to say I want to style it. So I give an attribute called class name and I give it, say, paragraph. Right. So I go to my styles file and I say, so since this is, so there are two things in CSS when you style an element. One is a class and one is an ID. So both are sort of like identifiers. Say I want to give a style, but to which element do I apply the style to? So for example, let me say I define a class red. So I tell that, okay, any element that has a class red should be in the color red. Okay. And I give a class, say, big font. So I say that any element that has this class should have a font size of 40 pixels. So there are a lot of different units that you can use over here. And again, everything is accessible on MDN. So you can just go to MDN and say search for CSS units. CSS units, values and units. We are it here. So let me see. Predefined key values. Yeah, length, dimensions that are used in CSS. Relative length. So we have here, right? See. And usually the most used units are REM and pixels. The other units are used in very specific cases. So right now I'm just going to stick with pixels and percentages to make it simple. So and let me define also another style, green. So this will have a color green. And I want to define an ID. So here I'm just trying to show the difference between an ID and a class. Blue text. Color blue. So let's define multiple p tags over here. And I want to give this class. So I want to call this blue text. Blue. So I'm giving it an ID blue text. And I'm giving this a ID. Since ID is a unique identifier, we should not give more than one IDs, but we can give more than one classes. Like for example, here I'm giving paragraph comma red. Here I'm giving paragraph comma green. And what other class do we have? And we have a big font. So I say that this uh, class, this paragraph tag should be of class big font. Let's see. So here we see, right, a class is basically like a predefined style that you can apply to any element over there. So here, say for the app, I apply, say green. All the content within that becomes green. But since I had specifically mentioned this tag should be red, even though the top level element has a class green, and we say that all the content inside it should be green, this class overrides the previous class. So that is one thing that I want you guys to know about CSS. So since like the class that you're given on that particular element has the most importance versus classes that are applied on its parent elements. So that is one small point about CSS. So let's look a bit more into CSS. And also, in case you guys have any questions, just type it down in the chat box, or you can just uh, you know call out and ask online. I can answer it for you guys. Okay. So going ahead, so let's look at a simple example of how JavaScript works over here. So JavaScript is basically used to add functionality to a website. So right now, CSS just tells you how to make the website look. HTML gives you the content that you need to show on the website. But say suppose you want to have any interaction. Say suppose when I want to click on this, this tag, I want say the entire document to become blue. So how do I do that? So let's go back to the app.js file, or let's see. Okay. Let's go to let's look at index.js. Okay, all right. So so yeah, so please move to index.js file. So over here, what we are going to do is, let's see if you can open the console as well. All right. So the browser that we have, right, Chrome. So Chrome has an internal JavaScript engine that it uses to parse all the JavaScript code. So if you want to try out any code over here, you can try it in the console as well. So for example, I give a equals 5. So in the browser, a variable a has been defined and its value has been set to 5. So if I do b equal to a plus 10, so b is a new variable that has been defined, which has taken the value of the previous variable a and has added 10 to it. So now b becomes 15. So JavaScript is like any other language. It has variables, it has functions. So right now, let me define a function. Uh, Function, say print hi. So this is similar to many other languages like Python or Java, where you define a function name, you give, so here any parameters that require to go into the function. So I give it some variable, say some input, and I do console.log print hi and plus the input. So since this function is defined, I can go to the console and call this function, or I can actually do it right here. So when this file is parsed, right, it would read, the browser would read it line by line. And once it reaches line 15, it would, okay, it would know that, okay, there's a function defined. Now in line 19, I'm going to call that function. So just because we define the function, it doesn't mean it will work. We have to invoke the function. So functions are basically like, recipes that you can think of, like a set of instructions that need to happen, but to execute them we need to call them. So how do we call a function? We just write its name, and so initially I'm going to give it an empty input, so it says hi undefined, because we required an input, and since right now we haven't given any value, it is undefined. So here I say hi Sachin. So when it reloads, it would take in the input value and it would append it to the word hi, and it would print out. So now let's look at how I can use JavaScript to add functionality to the website. So over here, we have different tags, and so there's an API that is given by the browser. It is called the document, uh, or what do you call it? Document API. So what an API means is, what are all the functions that you have access to. So for example, I have WhatsApp, and I say I want to use some functionality of WhatsApp. Can I write a program that would, when I run the program, will it tell me how many hundred messages I have on WhatsApp? So you have to go to WhatsApp's documentation and see if WhatsApp sort of exposes that information to the say to the users. Say, if I give you my phone number, can you tell me what are the 100 messages? So this is something, this is sort of like an interface that lets you interact with the application that is running behind the screen, and the interface only exposes some functionalities to end users. So this is called an application programming interface. And similarly, the browser has its own API. So we are going to look at something called document. So document interface represents any web page loaded on the browser. So let's see, what do I mean by it? So when I click on, say when I type document over here, it it shows me what is the document that is loaded on the browser. So we see that we have an HTML document, and it gives me all the content of the HTML document. So I have the head, and I have some scripts running over there, and let me see. Yeah, this is the body. So we saw a body tag, right, in the MDN website. So this is used to represent the entire content of the website. And we have root, and we have this section that we have in app.js over here. Where did it go? Yeah, over here. Yeah, so we see, right, it sort of reflects the content that you see on the browser, but it's actually the other way. So whatever you see over here is actually what the browser knows, and it sort of parses it and renders it for the user in, in a stylized manner. So now I want to get access to this blue color paragraph tag and add a functionality and say that, hey, whenever I click on the blue paragraph tag, I want you to make the entire website look blue in color. So for that, first let's add a style and call it say blue background. And I say that if any element gets this style, its background needs to become blue. So background color blue. So let me go back to app.js, sorry, index.js. And here I'm going to add something called as an so first let me access the blue element. So a blue element is an element that has the ID blue text. So I go here and I say document. From the document, get element by ID. So which element that I want to get, which ID? So I say blue text. All right. So that is the ID of the element. And uh, to this element, okay, let me just console log this first. Oh, just null. Okay. All right. I think I understood what the process. So for now, I would let me go back to the app file and let me write it down within a function here. I'll explain what's happening here in a bit, but for now, I'm only going to focus on explaining the document API. So use effect is a functionality that React provides where you can run some action once the website is loaded. So say here, I want to console log document, the any element that has ID blue. So we see that whenever we refresh the browser, uh, we got the element that has the ID blue. So now let me save it as a variable. Let element is equal to this element. Okay, so now I have saved it in a variable called element. So now I want to say whenever I click on this element, do something. So element dot add event listener. So what event should I add? So if you go back to the MDN and you search for events, so it tells you what are all the events that you. So now I'm going to do a click listener, right? So I go to pointer events, or maybe we can search for mouse events, mouse event. So it tells you what are the different types of mouse events that you can use. So I'm going to use a click event. So this is the syntax of using a click event. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to say whenever user clicks, what should I do when the user clicks? Say console.log. I have been clicked. So let's see. Okay, sorry. Should use. All right. So let me click on the blue element. So it says, oh, it says O have been clicked. So I will make it I have been clicked. So when I click on the blue element, it says I have been clicked. All right. So this is a way that, this is how JavaScript brings in functionality to the website. So now what I'm going to do is I'll show you a couple of things. So whenever I click on this, say I want to delete this line, start editing to see some magic happen. So I'm going to say ID. So I'm using this ID to uniquely identify this element. I'm going to call it, say, to delete. So I'm going to refer this element later, since I want to delete it. And then I'm going to call this element as the wrapper element, since this is the element that is sort of containing all the other elements, right? So what I do is first I want to delete the ID element. Let's see how to delete. So sometimes we won't know, right, how to do stuff. So we just go to MDN and search for a delete element. Delete, or let's just Google how to delete. How to delete element with JavaScript. So there is a remove method. So we won't know all the methods at all the time, right? So here we see that we can use a dot remove. Once we get the element, we can do dot remove. So this is how most people work. They don't know everything. You don't need to know everything when it comes to front-end development. You just Google stuff and figure it out. But it's important to like be aware of what you want to do so that you can search for it. So I'm first going to delete it. So let element to delete is equal to document dot get element by ID. Uh, yes, to delete. To delete. And so what I'm going to do is element to delete. Now I have this element. I'm going to do dot delete. Or was it dot remove? Yeah, it was remove, right? Remove. So we even have it highlighted for us here. So this is done. And next I want to make the entire screen blue. So I'm going to grab this element that has the ID wrapper. So let me copy this code and I'm going to say element background to change BG, and I need the element that is called wrapper. And I'm going to say for this element dot class list. So class list is basically an API that tells you what are all the classes that are applied on this element. So for example, let me go here to the DOM and run this command. Say a equal to this. So what is the class list of a dot class list, or is it a, okay, I think it is not a function, it's just an attribute. So if I click on this, it tells me what are all the classes that are there for a. So here we see, right, there is app and there is green. So class list sort of gives you the list of classes that are there for element, and you can add or remove elements from a class list. So here I'm going to add elements from a class list dot add. So what I want to add to this element is this style, blue background. So I'm going to add this blue background. Now let's see what happens when I click on this. So when I click on this, oh wait, remove element to delete. Oh, to delete, delete. Okay, so here we're getting something happened. Let me refresh it. Okay, so now let me click on this. Okay, read cannot read properties of null. Reading. It says this element is null. Why could it be null? Start editing. Okay, sure. Okay, so let's do one thing. So say sometimes it so happens that when the code is running, it might not actually, be able to find something, or there might be some errors or edge cases that you might have to handle. So, so JavaScript comes with conditional statements. So I can say that if element to delete is not equal to null, then do this. Okay. So this way, your code will not break. When on the browser, it won't like throw this dirty error message. So now I click on this and it worked. It maybe was able to find that element, and we see that that element is no longer present in this DOM, and the entire document has become blue. So this is one way where we can, use JavaScript. So if you look at the DOM, right? So let me grab this element for you, wrapper element. So document get element by ID. Uh, so we see here it is also removed from the DOM. So though it is there on our code in the HTML document, in the browser it is actually no longer existing. So we have hello code sandbox, and this middle line has been deleted, and this wrapper element, initially it had only app and green, now even blue background has been added to it. So this is one way where we can add functionality using simple JavaScript. So now let's proceed further. So yeah, this is an editor that you guys can play around with. So you can just go to W3 schools, JavaScript tutorial, maybe if you guys want to learn JavaScript. So it has all the different types. So I learned JavaScript by following a YouTuber called Mosh. Maybe you guys can try that as well. So Mosh tube platform Mosh JavaScript. So this was a very useful tutorial for me. There's one guy called Mosh, and there's one guy called Fun Function. So this is a great channel that helped me learn all the advanced topics of JavaScript. So now let's you guys can look into it anytime. So I'll just paste the the names in the chat so that you guys can refer to us later. Mosh, YouTube, Java, and React. So I learned React from his videos as well. And for fun function for advanced concepts in JS. So I learned it from these two people. So now let's go further. So when we spoke about CSS, let me just walk you through all the different features on CSS in a quick way. So we see that there are so many properties that you can do, to add to your elements. You can make the font size different. You can make it over, like say suppose the text is overflowing out of the available space. We need to add that those three dots, right? So that's overflow property, color, width, background image, any animation. So I'll show you one. I don't know if you can share my screen. Yeah, so when we saw this where is that application that show? Yeah, so when you looked at this app, right, you see there's a lot of visual animations that are present. So all this has been done using CSS. So say I want to draw a wall, we see how these these elements are sort of popping up from the screen, like their size is changing as we draw them. So this is achieved using CSS. So like basically what they would do is they would say document.get element, like get this element, and update the style. So actually let me see if I can show it. I'm actually working on this project. So let me go to GitHub. Wait, we have the repo here, right? Define access filter. So this is my repo where I am sort of searching, sorry, storing. Wait, let me see. It goes to topics. Oh wait, I think there's a problem here. Hmm. Okay, let's look at it later. Uh, but yeah, so here we see, right, there are so many elements that, say, suppose I click on, say, Dijkstra's algorithm, we will see all the cells being highlighted and their colors changing, their shapes changing. So all of this is achieved using CSS and JavaScript. So basically, we run some algorithm and we get all the information about which nodes to animate from that function. And just like how I showed you, right, document.get element by so and so, we say change the class, add the class yellow, add the class blue. And in CSS, we give information about the animation. So basically, you can do that using CSS. So let's go further. Okay. So we have about 30 more minutes. So we can, I want to show you guys how to use React.js. So in JavaScript, plain JavaScript, you need to use this document API for any sort of modification that you want to do in the browser. But there are a lot of libraries like React and Angular and Vue.js that make this work easier for you. So internally, they would have all this code written inside it. Yeah, Sachin, I think I mentioned it. Mosh, you can follow Mosh on YouTube. I can maybe copy the YouTube link for you. Mosh React. Yes. So there is a React tutorial for beginners, and you can follow them. So I think he has a couple of videos also, like more than one video, where he also teaches how much JavaScript you need to know to actually work with React. So React, without JavaScript you can't work with React, because React is just like a additional features added to JavaScript. So first you need to learn JavaScript, and even Mosh has a tutorial where he tells which features of JavaScript you need to know to work with React. So you can start with that, and if you don't understand any particular function, you can read more about that. So I did it in the same way. I started with this video, and then I saw that video where he teaches the JavaScript concepts, and over there, whichever I did not understand, I went to the fun functions channel and I searched for that concept and I learned it. But more than so this is a good starting point, but to learn it better, you should start building something so that you can actually put it into practice, and only then it will sort of you'll get familiar with it. Otherwise, you'll know that, okay, I can do something, but if somebody comes and tells you, hey, can you make this UI for me, you won't be able to do it. So it's a very good thing to do a little bit every day, so that way you get to gradually improve your skill set.
Can we build using Code Sandbox?
Yes, you can build using Code Sandbox. So I think in Code Sandbox, the free version, you get 3 code sandboxes that you can start off with.
Okay.
So right now we'll look at an example of how to build a React app using Code Sandbox. I think if you sign up, and maybe there might be a trial or the freemium version where you can have more than one you know projects that you're running. So let's go back to React. So uh, let's see. I think we so actually there is a lot more to CSS than just adding styles. So there is something called as a box model that you need to know. So box model is basically say you want to set some spacing out of your elements. You don't want all the elements to appear one on top of the other. See, for example, over here I have these 2 paragraph tags, right? And they are pretty close to each other. So what if I want to add more spacing to these elements? So let's just look at a quick example of how to do that. So I'm going to wrap, so let me use a different tag. So I use a section tag. And I'm going to put all of these paragraph tags within a section tag. Right. So now I'm going to call this section tag. And it's also important to like indent your document so that it's easier to read. So now I know that all these lie within the section tag. So let me give it a class name. Say I'm going to call this align. Okay. So now I go to the CSS file and I go to dot align. So here I'm going to introduce Flexbox to you guys. Flexbox is basically a CSS API that lets you easily align and arrange items within your document. So for example, I want to have all of this in the same row. So I can just do first I need to give the property display flex. So the default uh, order is row wise. So just the moment I put property flex, all the elements get arranged in a row. And say I want to have first, let me put a background so that we know which div are we are looking at. So background color, I make it aqua. So wait, so align has all these paragraphs tag within it. And let's see why this one can collapse. Okay. Down. So this is the browser. And this works bad. Back to it. So this is like the browser's default. What do you call? And so this is one way where you can see your HTML document. You can look at the styles over here, and we can play around with it. So how you do it is you just right click and click on inspect. So this opens up for you. The elements tab has the HTML document over here, and see, so in the section we have all these elements now arranged in a row. Now what if I want to make it column wise? So flex direction column. So it has gone back to column wise arrangement. And say this section, I'll say make it a little more uh, taller so that we can actually see the different flex properties. So let me make it height. Uh, so I want to introduce a different unit. So this is view height. So view height basically takes into consideration the entire screen's height. So I can make it one view height. It becomes that small. So as I increase the view height, the element, the container sort of grows in size. And here we see that only this much, this part of the container has been taken up by the elements, and the remaining portion is free. So I can use different properties like to space out the elements. So we can use justify content space around. So this will, you know, space the elements in a better way. Space between, or I can use center to move all the, sorry, center, to move all the elements towards the center. So this is a very important thing to know when it comes to CSS. So a Flexbox has a lot of features. Flex direction, you want to justify the elements, you want to equally space them. So these are all the different ways in which you can align the elements horizontally. You can move it to the start, the end, spread it, and even vertically you can do the same sort of alignment. So you can follow this link to, it's on the slides. So this is a really good, uh, what do you call, website where you can play around with all the different features of uh, Flex. So here you see, right, I can just decrease the container width and it actually shows you how it will look, and it tells you what is the relevant CSS that is used in the Flex. So you see here, this is called Flex Grow. So this sort of tells you how the element should grow and shrink in size. And So block. So once I make it flex, what happens? It all arranges horizontally. And yeah, so basically this is something you guys can go through. So now let's start looking into React. So we have about 20 minutes. So I would like to quickly show you the basic functionalities of React. So in React, so why is React required, or what React brings to the picture? React helps you modularize your code. So say suppose in a HTML document over here, we see that we have a wrapper div, and within it we have all the 4p tags. But what if I want to separate this out? I want to keep it somewhere else, and I don't want it in this document. So that way, say for example, what if I could make it just my content or something like this, and close this tag and not have anything over here. So we see that how much the code looks cleaner when we do this, right? So this is called modularization. My content will be defined somewhere else. So all the 4p tags that we use can be defined in that my content. So that is one thing that React helps you to do. So that is called a component in React. So components are self-contained snippets of code which have the CSS, the HTML, and the JavaScript within the same file. So this way, say suppose you have a huge application and you have a left panel and you have a center panel and you have a right panel, you have a header. You don't want all the code to reside in the same file, right? So you want to have a separate file called header.js, right panel.js, center panel.js, and have the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript within that file. So that is called modularization of code, and React helps you with that by providing components. It's called a component in React. So here we see, right? So every component is basically a function. So when we load the app in the app.js file, uh, sorry, in the index.js file, we see that it is just calling this app component, and that app component's code is present in the app.js file. So this code, this is sort of an example of you know what do you call containerization or modularization. So say suppose I remove this and I put it in index.js. Let's see if it renders. Yeah, so see, we got the same content here. But if I had not done this, if I just kept app, it's just one line. It's easier to read the code file over here, and we say bring it back over here. So that is an example of how React helps you break down your code into different files. And yeah, you can refer different components inside other components. So let me give you an example. So over here, say suppose I in the bottom, I want to add say some image. Let me go to Google and let me look at images. Sorry, not news, images. So okay, why is it? Okay, let me see. Copy image address. So I copied this image address. Now if I go to the browser and paste it, we get this image. So how do I show this within my application? So I'm going to create a new image component, create file image.js. And so let's see how components are defined over here. So a component needs to have this function definition, and it needs to have a return function. So let's copy this. Let's go to image.js. Let's do export default function image. All right, and let's go back. So export default function image, and we need a return. So return is basically what is sent back to the other file when it calls for the image. So I go here and I say return. What should I return over here? I'm going to return a simple div for now. Simple HTML div. And I'm going to say image will be here. So now I'm just going to go to this app.js file, and at the end, I'm going to call that component. And here I need to import it on top, like import image from image. So this way, see, we have that text over here, image will be here. So though I do not have any code of that image over here, just because I called that component from here, it is appearing over here. So let me just comment this out. Ah, okay. The event listeners need the event, the DOM element. So let me throw another. Okay, let me comment these things. Okay, so I go within the image and I say I want to render an img tag with the source. This is the source of the image, and I close it. So though the code is present in a separate file, we are able to get it in this document using the import function. So that is how you import files from a different component. So this is one functionality of React. And just like a function, you can pass parameters, you can pass properties to the file. So for example, say I have two images. Say I want to say copy image address. So based on some variable, I want to say whether display the first image or display the second image. So I go to the image and I say call this option. Okay, so this has to be in curly braces notation, because when the properties come get read by the function, right, they are read in this format. So they are called props, and each prop has so option and its value. So it is read in this manner. So this is a syntax, it's called destructuring in JavaScript. So I urge you to look at what is destructuring JavaScript. So you can just go to MDN and search for destructuring assignment. Yeah, you guys can look at this in the MDN document. So it's basically nothing but I just want to extract one value from an object. I don't want to read the entire object. So here, since the prop has the attribute option, I only want to read the option over here. So I just put option in the curly braces, and I say, how do I use this option? So since this is a React application, it gives you the opportunity to use JavaScript along with the HTML file as well. So let me wrap this in a curly braces. And so there are some syntax changes that you might have to do. Um, so let's see, if option is equal to 1, then render this, else say don't render anything for now. Let's see. Let's see. How do we do that? Hmm, okay. If the option is 1, uh, render this, else I want to render another image that I will provide over here. So this is called a ternary operator in JavaScript. So ternary operator is basically, it has three parts to it. One is the condition that you want to check. So first I want to see if option equals 1. If so, do this. Otherwise, do this. So this is something that you will commonly see in React applications. So let me go copy this URL image address, and I go back here and I paste that image address over here. Right. So now we still see that. Okay, now we see that we have the second image that is being rendered. So why did that happen? So that happened because right now we have not defined what the option is, right? So it checked to see if option was 1, but no, we have not defined option. So it went to the second like this latter part of it, which needs to happen in case this condition fails. So now let's go back to app.js and give the prop over here. So I tell option is 1. So now we can control it better. So if I change it to 2, the second image is rendered. If we change it to 1, the first image is rendered. So these are called props in React. So we see here, right? Here we have a name prop. So this name right now it is used as like it is defined within the function, but you can also, pass it. So over here we see that Oasis average GPA is something. We don't know what the GPA is. That is handled as a variable at the top level. So this is called props in React. And so these can be used when you want to pass information from a parent to a child component. So this is something that is commonly used in React. So now let's look at state in React. So state is basically like the information that the component has. uh, uh, like it's like, say for example, we have uh, people, right? We have people, we have like I have a name, you have a name, we both are humans, but we have different properties. So we both are, think of it like in the component way, we both are human components. So assume in the React I define a file called human, and I give the following properties: name, age, height, and which program they are studying. So all components of this file will have all these properties. Say for example, I am calling this image again, but this one I will give a property of 2. So the first image took the property 1, the second image took the property 2. So properties are basically information passed on from outside. But what if you have some information that is, inherent to the component? So that is called the state of the component. So for example, I go to image and I define the state. So for example, so for that I need to use the use state hook. So hooks are basically functionalities given by React that help you do different actions. So right now I'm going to use the state hook. So the syntax is, what is the variable name that you want to hold? Say for example, I want to hold the variable name. And how do I modify it? So set name. So we need to pass in two values. One is the variable and the other one is a function that will actually help you change the variable. So initially I'm going to use generic any random name. So I do use state and I'm going to use ABC. All right. So so right now, both these components have ABC as their state. So if I go here and say I want to show name, see, we see that under both the components it's written as ABC because both of them have the internal state as ABC, right? So but let me try one thing. I want to say that if I click on the image, I want to change the state to say something else. So let me see. On click, so what do I need to do on click? I want you to set the name to def. Let me see what is an expected token. Okay, maybe we cannot give on click on. Let me see. Let me remove this from here and use a div instead. Click me. All right. So both the elements will, both the images will have a click me attribute, click me text in them. And for this, I want to give an on click functionality. And let me just call this set name property, set name function, set name to df. So, okay. So this is something that you guys need to be aware of. So what happened here was, so this is a syntax that you use to define a function. This is a syntax that you use to call the function directly. So we don't want to call it directly. We want it to happen only when we click on it. So this is like to this on-click handler, I'm just letting it know that this is the function that you need to run when I click. So this syntax is important. Otherwise, it would directly let the function happen, which is a problem for us. So right now we see that if I click on this, the text changed to DEF over here, but under this it is still ABC. So this is something that you can look into why it is different. So because initially when I passed, you know, when I call these components, both of them had an initial state of ABC. But right now, when I clicked on the click me button, I clicked on only the button only for the first image. So only the first image state changed to DEF. The second image still retains its original state. So this is again coming back to a human being. Each one has their own name, and say if one person changes the name doesn't mean all the other people get their names changed, right? So that is something you can think of like being a state for an application. So that is one feature that React provides. And yeah, so we were supposed to build this application during this workshop, but so this application is basically has all the components that we just explained right now. So I'll just open it for you and I'll explain like what like how state and how props are used. So right now this is a simple application that has some input fields on the left, and if I click on this button, it's supposed to show some text over here. So the code for this application is available in this GitHub repo. The link is available over here. You guys can clone it, and I'll show you how to run it as well. Uh, so, so say for example, in these places we need to, add some text. So this would be a component, and it would have some state values. So say suppose this is state value 1, this state value 2, this state value 3, 4, and 5, and they are controlled by these input fields on the left. So when I type something over here, uh, you have access to say awesome events, so it updates immediately. So how does this happen? So we saw two things, right? We saw that DOM API and we saw the props. So whenever you change the props, the component gets re-rendered. So for example, here, if so here I updated from 1 to 2, right? So the component got re-rendered. And say for example, I add another prop, say name, and I'll show you how whatever we saw in that application, I'll show you how it's done. So initially I pass it as an empty string. Name, I pass it as an empty string, and I I print it over here. So right now it's, wait, what is def? Okay, so I need to also extract the name from here. Okay, maybe name has already been taken. Oh, sorry, name is already being used. So I need to use a different property type, different prop. So I say text. So I go to the image and I extract that here and I render it here. So right now it's empty, and let me put an input field over here. So this is a HTML tag of type text. All right. So right now we got an input field and I can type, but nothing will happen. So what I want to do is whatever I type over here, I want that to be sent to this text property. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is, like I did in the other component, I'm going to define a state const text to send and set text to send. All right. Use state empty string. So initially I'm going to use this state variable for this property. So right now text to send is empty. Say suppose I update this, say apple. So it has taken the value apple over here. But now I want to send whatever I type over here to that element. So how do I do that is on this input field, I add an on change listener, change. So what do I do on change? So on change, I take the event. So events are basically, so whenever I do any action on the DOM, an event is triggered by JavaScript. So I take that event and what do I do is I set it to this variable event dot target dot value. And for this input field, I set the value as that text to send variable. So the default value will be text to send. And as I change this, so since it was Apple, now the input field has Apple. And even that component got the value Apple. Now I remove it, it gets removed. I type orange, orange appeared over here. So this is the same thing that is happening in this application. So whenever I type anything, it appears in that component. Lot of opportunities to network, passion for coding, want to chill with other CS enthusiasts. Let's go together. So yeah, so this is how state and props sort of work in React. Yeah, so I just wanted to close off. So I know it's a very short time to speak a lot and get you do it hands-on, but these are all the entry points that you can follow through to build your skills further. So even I build applications on a day-to-day basis. So if you go to my GitHub repo, you would see that I am doing a commit every day. So I am trying to build this application myself using React and JavaScript. So I learn a lot when I do this. So even I was not a CS grad before, so I did my undergrad in mechanical engineering, and I started coding like only 3 years back. So my journey has been, 4 years of mechanical engineering, then like 3 months training in data science, and I worked as a sales executive for an year, and then later I started, working as a software developer. So it has been a great learning experience for me, and uh, you know I since I was able to work as a software developer, I got experience trying out a lot of different things, and only by building stuff I got to learn a lot. So my like if you guys want to learn front end development, you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn and we can build projects together. And it's key to practice all these things on a daily basis. So that way it's easy to pick up skills over time. So you guys have these slides for reference. And I think I also have the GitHub repo over here. Yeah, so this is a GitHub repository. You can download, you can clone this. You have all the code over here, and you can reach out to me anytime if you want any clarification regarding how to play around with this. So if you go to the source code, you have the app.js file, which has the image tag and the input field. So it's basically a simple application that you guys can run. um, hey, do you have a git installed here? Yeah, I just want to show them to clone it and run it. Like I just need to do an npm install.
So you want to just like open in terminal?
Yeah. VS, do you have VS?
Yes, go. Yes, here.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I'm just showing you how to run it so that you can try it out. Um, okay. So got it. All right. So wait, I think I'm on Teams. Okay. Yeah, can you just clone it? Yeah. Wait, your VS Code is white?
Sorry.
Does it have a white? Like, just click on this. Does it have a white background to it?
Yes.
Oh, for me, VS Code is always black. So it's like, what does this mean that I close it? Oh, okay.
Yes, and you can just do
All
it
right.
here,
Perfect.
and you can clone it.
Yeah.
Anywhere you want.
Yeah, just do it on the home directory for me. You
Yeah.
can remove it.
And you can delete this file.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm just.
Do you want to share this?
Oh, yeah. Let me go share this.
This one.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm just going to clone that repo. So you use SSH or HTTP?
I'm not sure. Just use git clone.
You can do
Yeah, yeah. So you know using password, right?
Huh?
You know using password, right? Yeah, you can GitHub. How do you clone repos usually?
You just use git clone.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure if I set up a system.
Okay. So cd. Okay. Git clone. Oh, I don't think it'll require your username and password. Yeah. So you don't need like to type in any password.
VS
Yeah. So you
it's
can
required if it's private.
yeah. Mine is
Cool.
public repo, so
Yeah.
you can do it. So we just cd into madlib. So we just go into that folder and we see that this is node. Sorry, it's a React project.
Okay.
So to start this project, you need npm installed. Npm is Node Package Manager, and you need Node.js installed. So the links are on the presentation. So you need to do npm install to. So this project only has like the names of the packages in the code base. It does not have the packages. So before starting any project, you need to do npm install first, so that it downloads, like say the React needs to be downloaded, and say you have any other libraries that need to be downloaded, it gets installed using this command. Meanwhile, yeah, I'll open it once so it's installed. Yeah, so it's installed, and I'm going to open it within this IDE, home directory, this one. Yeah, so this is the project, and so you just open it. So these are all the files, and you can transfer and continue. Yes. Okay, so now that all the packages are installed, you can confirm that by looking at this folder called node modules. So initially it wouldn't be present. Once you run npm install, so for example, it will get downloaded. So now how do you start the project? So these are all the options that are available in, well, given by npm, but we only require the start option. So you can either do say first, okay, so we are in the directory, you can do npm run start, or you can just hover over this part and it would tell you which script you want to run. So this runs in debug mode, which I don't want right now. So I'm just going to npm run start. So this will start the project in your local browser. We need to share the browser as well. Okay, desktop one. I think this one's. It is. Oh, looks like. So the first time, whenever you start a project, it takes a bit to load, but you can, the second or third time it would refresh immediately. So this is a working code that is present in the code base. You guys can modify, download it, modify it, try different CSS styles. Okay. You can play with it, do whatever you want with it. So whatever you type, it just appears over here. So you can look at how React is used in this project. So if you go over here and so the code is present within the src folder. Wait, so I think I'm going to share this. Yes. Yeah, so the code is present in the src folder. So like we saw in the code share website, code sandbox,
Yeah.
it has the same project structure. Okay. The first file is index.js, where it just calls the app component, and within the app component you have these state variables. Okay. And just like we saw, right, word 1, word 2, word 3, word 4, word 5, and how to update it using set word. So what happens over here, we have an input text field, and the input text field is another component. So it just you know, whenever we change it, it calls the set function that basically calls this set state, and it updates the word. And this is basically used as a property in the output component. So output component basically takes these 5 words and inserts them into the right place. So if you see, this is exactly what we see on this browser. So we see that we have these 5 yellow parts, and these exactly correspond to the props that the component gets. Yeah, so you guys can try this out and let me know if you have any issues when you run this.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's about the workshop, and I can answer any questions if you guys have, or we can drop. Thank you, Sachin. I hope you guys were able to get some clarity and learn a bit. Mhm. Uh, Using the Git repo, as in, if you want to run the file, you can go ahead and run the project like I did. You just have to npm install and run it. But if you want to like read through the code, I would suggest you go through Mosh videos. Mosh actually, even I think he builds a simple application so that you can code along with him, and you can get a hang of how code looks in React, so that when you actually look at the code base in this GitHub repo, you will be able to know, okay, this line means this. So it is a good idea to watch Mosh video before it, but even otherwise, you can download it and try running it, and maybe do some, you can tweak the code and see what happens. So that's also one way to learn. But yeah, what you say is a good idea. You can watch the videos before trying out the GitHub repo. And I'll just drop in my LinkedIn in case you guys want to reach out to me. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is my LinkedIn file. You can reach out to me here or you can reach out to me on Teams. Anything works. How many are still present? Yeah, we still have 11 people. Yeah, in case you guys want to uh, ask any questions, we can maybe stay for like a couple of minutes. Otherwise, we can drop. People are still on the call. All right, guys. Thanks for your time. I hope it was a productive session for you guys. I'm dropping from the call and I'm ending the meeting. So you can reach out to me anytime if you have any clarifications. Have a good weekend and all the best.